Guardians of the Galaxy is the latest film from Marvel and is directed by James Gunn. The film stars Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, also known as Star-Lord.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today it's a spoiler-free review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 directed by Mr. DC himself, James Gunn. Now firstly, I want to thank Marvel for the invite to the preview screening on Tuesday night in Melbourne, followed by a really sweet after party that was hosted by Spotify. It was an awesome little getaway and just a fun little overnight trip that Chloe and I had. So again, a massive thank you to Marvel for that. Now before we delve into Volume 3, let's go back to the beginning. When it came to the first Guardians film, it was a massive surprise to me. I'd never heard of these characters nor read the comics when the film was first released back in 2014, but for me it was refreshing, it was fun, I loved the characters, and 2017's Volume 2 was pretty on par, though not as strong as Volume 1. Regardless, I still enjoyed the elements of Kurt Russell's portrayal of Ego, Star-Lord's dad, and delving into their evolving relationship. The humor wasn't as strong, though they sort of milked it, I guess you could say, but Guardians 2 was just like a school athletics carnival. Everyone played their best. But honestly, ever since Endgame, it seems like Marvel haven't really been taking any risks in terms of storytelling and just sticking to what's safe. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but it can grow stale after a while, and now and then you need to shake things up, surprise your audience, and keep them interested. But I'm beyond happy to say that Guardians Volume 3 does the complete opposite of sticking to what's safe and chooses to try something new, especially in terms of tone and shock value. James Gunn doesn't hold back in Volume 3. He takes us to some really dark places that quite frankly are extremely confronting at times, and especially when it comes to the character of Rocket Raccoon. He has a very tragic backstory accompanied by some of the best CGI I've seen in a long time, done by the UK company The Frame Store. This is by far my favorite Marvel film as of late. It took me by surprise, and I commend everyone involved for taking the risk and going against the grain of Marvel's usual cookie cutter play it safe approach. So the basic story for Volume 3 is that the Guardians are adjusting to life on Nowhere when parts of Rocket's past resurface, and in order to protect him, Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, must lead the Guardians on a dangerous mission that would lead to the team dissolving if they fail. Like I said, I haven't been this moved, shocked, and entertained by a Marvel film in a long time, and Rocket's backstory is at times extremely hard and confronting to watch. And I'm not gonna lie, I cried. I know a lot of people have been saying that. I had a headache from crying during those scenes. Like, you know when you're trying to keep it together and you end up looking like Tim Curry from Home Alone 2? Like, you know you're watching pixels. But that's how damn good the visual effects work was from the Frame Store. I'm one of those people that if a human dies in a film, I'm like, that's a shame. But if an animal dies in a film, I'm like, we riot. So this is supposedly the last ride for the Guardians, and you can feel that everyone brings their A game with their performances, particularly Chris Pratt and Shakuti Uji's The High Evolutionary. Like, yes, Chris Pratt seems so much more focused in this film. Love and Thunder, he just looked completely lost. I know that that was just a little cameo, but that just didn't feel like Star-Lord to me. But in Volume 3, he delivers some of his best work, and I know it's not the highest point of measure because it's a comic book film, but he really did deliver some gut punches, so kudos to him for stepping up to the plate. Now going back to the shock value, there's one scene in particular that I won't spoil that involves the High Evolutionary that is very hard to watch, like bordering on the gore level of Evil Dead Rise. Again, took me completely by surprise, and usually that's a big no-no in Marvel's books. I think James Gunn, knowing full well that this is his swan song for the Guardians, he's pulled out all the bells and whistles and wrapping these characters up in a nice little bow, and I feel like he's added so many more layers to these characters, even though the 2-hour 30 runtime was a bit of a slog. Everything seems so much more pure in Volume 3, if that makes sense. Like, I felt Volume 2 was filler, but Volume 3 just seems to go back to the pure basics of Volume 1. And yes, I'm saying volume quite a lot. Now, Will Poulter's Adam Warlock was a welcome addition to the film. I was very curious to see what he could do, in particular playing the bad guy. Like, guess you could call him a bad guy. He has this nice balance of indestructible and unstoppable, right up to being infatuated by a small creature and keeping it and nurturing it as his pet. And going back to the runtime, there were a few times where they definitely could have wrapped up a few scenes a little earlier, and there were some visual effects shots that seemed a little underworked. is I think the production was focused around the visuals of Rocket's backstory, which honestly, I get it. Those scenes contain a lot of emotion, and when you're building an emotion from scratch, that's where a lot of the budget is definitely going to go. I definitely feel this is a fitting ending for the Guardians. It's crazy to think the first one came out nearly 9 years ago. And as I said, I cried more than a few times, but then you go from crying to laughing and then back to crying. And the humor has finally come full circle, I feel, and it's like on par with the humor of the first film. The second film didn't quite stick the landing and definitely milked the humor, whilst Volume 3 uses the humor only when it's needed and it's not trying to shove it down your throat like a lot of Marvel films have done in the past. The film features some of the most incredible prosthetic makeup work I've seen in a long time, and this is makeup that is barely seen at times because it's mostly background extras wearing the makeup. There's always being a Marvel film, the costuming is on point, particularly Adam Warlock and the High Evolutionaries costumes were amazing to look at. And we finally see the Guardians in their comic accurate suits, although it would have been cool to see Star-Lord with his helmet and his comic accurate suit. Overall, guys, this is the most fun I've had in a Marvel film in a long time. It was refreshing. It just felt like Marvel back in the day. It breaks free from what's been the norm with Marvel films as of late, and I commend Gunn, his cast, and his extremely talented crew of artisans, whether it be the production design, the costumers, the makeup department, and the visual effects crew for delivering, in my opinion, is a very fitting end to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And despite a runtime that's a bit of a slog at times, and keeping in mind this clocks in at the longest of the trilogy, it definitely hits you in the feels, and like with Rocket's backstory, I never thought we needed it, but here we are. So with that being said, I'm going to be giving Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 4 Trash Pandas out of 5. Now, of course, being a Marvel film, there is a mid-credits scene and a post-credits scene, so make sure you stick around for them. With that being said, guys, once you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, drop a comment below, let me know your thoughts. Do you think it was a fitting ending for the Guardians? I definitely did. Again, it was just refreshing and just felt like Marvel back in the day, so I definitely want to see more films like this. Love you guts, and I'll catch you in the next one.